Hello, I'm Lisa Rayam, host of Morning Edition on WABE, and welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Louder Milk Young Debate Series from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. This is the debate for candidates running for DeKalb County CEO. Let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. Steve Bradshaw is a DeKalb County Commissioner representing District 4. Larry Johnson is a DeKalb County Commissioner representing District 3. And Lorraine Cochran Johnson is a DeKalb County Commissioner representing District 2. Now let's meet our panelists. Kathy Cobbs covers Atlanta for Rough Draft Atlanta. Dan Whisenhunt is the editor and founder of Decatur-ish. Welcome to you all. For complete rules on today's program, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question by a specific panelist. Candidates have 60 seconds to answer their questions. Dan Whisenhunt, you get the first question to Larry Johnson.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, do you think that local money should be spent to create affordable housing in DeKalb County?
Yes, that's a great question, Dan, and thank you to the Atlanta Press Club. I think we should, but it also means we have to have the public-private partnership. The funding comes from the federal government through HUD, and we work with our state to get the state subsidy. And DeKalb County needs to be a county who works with to make sure that we have housing. I was the first one to pass a workforce housing ordinance in the state of Georgia, in our county, where our firefighters, teachers, and police will now can have a place to go, and we'll build a public-private partnership to do it. And I think we all need to collaborate and be a part of this table, because housing is a right. It's something that we need to have, and I think the county, as a chief executive officer, I will be the one leading the charge to bring these partnerships together. We don't need to put the burden all on the DeKalb County taxpayers, but we need to work with our federal and state partners to make sure affordable housing is happening and done in DeKalb.
Thank you. Kathy Cobbs, please ask a question to Steve Bradshaw.
Mr. Bradshaw, in interviews and candidate forums, you have frequently mentioned that South DeKalb is underserved in economic development and resource allocation. As CEO, what do you see as priorities for bringing parity to that area, and what elements do you see in North and Central DeKalb that are missing in South DeKalb?
So thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The first thing we have to do is reorient Decide DeKalb towards South DeKalb. Decide DeKalb is our development authority, and they are charged with the responsibility of driving economic development all over the DeKalb County. The problem is, up until now, they've been primarily focused on North DeKalb County, and they need to be reoriented. I will apply two pieces of leverage to induce that orientation. Number one is the funding. The annual funding that DeKalb County supplies to Decide DeKalb. It started when I first took office at $750,000 a year. Now it's $1,750,000 a year. I intend to take it to $3 million a year within 2 budget cycles. And then the second leverage point is the board appointments. Those board appointments are CEO appointments. They have to be ratified by the commission, but anybody sitting across from me looking for an appointment to that board will have to convince me that they'll be oriented on South DeKalb as well.
Thank you. We go back to Dan to ask a question to Lorraine Cochran Johnson.
Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson, I live on a street in DeKalb County that has seen 2 water main breaks this year. It was a lot of fun. Wanted to ask you, if you were elected as CEO, what will you do to not only improve DeKalb County watershed, but improve communications around the DeKalb County Watershed Department?
Yes, thank you so much, Dan, for that question. Let me say that I've had the honor of serving as the Public Works and Infrastructure Chair for the past 2 years. And as a result of that, we have invested $1.4 billion in water and infrastructure. For over 4 decades, we did not have a capital improvement plan. So consequently, we have had to work very hard to remediate, expand, replace, and enlarge our infrastructure. So over the next several years, you will see that there will be a huge turnaround And DeKalb is now finally on track to materialize great returns in terms of economic development. So my commitment will be to continue to expand upon what we've begun. Many may know that we are already under a consent decree that requires us to take specific action. I will continue by obtaining both WIFIA, Water Infrastructure Finance Investment Act loans, as well as GEFA, Georgia Environmental Act loans, that will allow us to continue the work that has already been begun. And we also now have a very detailed plan for the future, of which we have not had. So our capital improvements will be ongoing.
Thank you. That concludes the first round. The candidates will now ask a question to each other. The candidate who asks the question will also have 30 seconds for a rebuttal. You may pose your question any of your opponents, rather. Lorraine Cochran Johnson, you get the first question to one of your opponents.
Yes, my first question will be to Commissioner Steve Bradshaw. It focuses around a recent ethics complaint that was filed. And in this particular complaint, it focuses around a property at 4549 Erskine Road that is adjacent to his property. This particular property came before the Board of Commissioners, and as the sitting district commissioner, he voted the property down. However, upon review, he had been warned by the Ethics Board that he had both a real and perceived interest in the property because it abutted his home. I'd like to know from him what he will do in the future, or how can we trust him to be ethical when he has failed to do so previously?
Well, actually, that's not true. Before that came to the Board of Commissioners for a decision, I specifically asked the ethics director for a ruling on that, and she told me that because I didn't have any financial interest in the property, it wasn't a problem for me taking action. So I don't know where those facts came from. I won't call them facts because that is inaccurate in terms of what transpired.
Do you have a rebuttal?
I do. I'm actually holding the documents, and it shows that you own the property directly adjacent. And in none of the disclosures or discussions with either the Ethics Board nor our law department did you disclose that ownership. You only referred to yourself as a resident, and when your wife wrote letters directly to the community council, she failed to disclose your ownership as well.
Not true.
Moving on. Larry Johnson, it is your turn to ask a question.
Yes, this question is to Commissioner Bradshaw. When I first joined the board in 2003, our senior services was in disarray. I voted to tie-breaking vote to bring the Lou Walker Center to our area, and I was the first commissioner to get a senior center on Candler Road. You've been a champion for seniors in the East Central DeKalb Senior Center. Talk about how important it was to have that senior center, and how, you know, working with folks on the board, you wanted to make sure that that area had the services for our seniors that we both champion.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Yeah, so when I first took office, there was a report that was handed to me regarding the distribution of senior centers throughout DeKalb County. And there was a gaping hole right there where my district was. And I went about the business of trying to change and reverse that situation. We tried to get general fund allocation. That was turned down, but we did not stop. We kept plowing through. We wound up funding the senior center with a loan from HUD, a HUD Section 108 loan, and then I covered the remaining $300,000 out of my discretionary budget. The senior center and community center is equipped with a swimming pool, which I don't mind sharing with y'all was quite a fight amongst my colleagues on the Board of Commissioners. But I thank Commissioner Larry Johnson for being one of the folks that stood with me on that momentous day. We took that vote. The senior and community center is open. Whenever I'm there, the seniors and the community tell me how much they love it and how grateful they are to me for fighting for that resource.
Mr. Johnson, anything to add to that?
No, ma'am.
Moving on. Steve Bradshaw, please ask your question.
Yes, thank you. My question is for Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson. Commissioner, you have been promoting yourself as a candidate of transparency and accountability. Yet, during the pandemic, while other DeKalb County businesses were in need, you took COVID relief funds from the city of Stonecrest for your failed restaurant. My question is, what happened to that money?
Let me be very clear with everyone that's watching, and I'm so thankful that you've finally taken the opportunity to ask the question rather than discuss it behind closed doors. I was not the owner of Annie's Crab Kingdom. If anyone cares to check with our Secretary of State's office, Annie is my beloved aunt. Of course, my mother passed away in 2008, and she's very much like a parent to me. So I assist her in anything that she does. Those monies that she applied for were received and utilized according to the guidelines associated with the federal distribution. And to date, there has been no call to question as to how they were used by her restaurant, because there is no reason to question or doubt the use of those funds. So I would ask anyone, if they have any further questions, to refer to the Secretary of State's office. And before one makes allegations, make sure you get your facts straight.
Mr. Bradshaw, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, so growing up, I was taught to believe that leadership is about self-sacrifice. While others were in need, you stood in line first. To me, that's not right, and that's not leadership.
Cochran Johnson, do you have a rebuttal?
I never stood in line. Obviously, Commissioner Bradshaw does not hear well. The restaurant is actually owned by my aunt, and everything that she's done has been legal and above board. There has been no cause or reason for anyone to question her actions or the allocation of the funds. She is a tax reporting citizen. She was a resident of Stonecrest and owned a business there and had every right to receive funds, because me, being a county commissioner, did not prohibit her from applying and receiving monies, because she was, and at that time, a legal resident of the county as well as a business owner.
And that concludes our second round. You are watching the debate for DeKalb County CEO. We will now go back to the panel to ask questions to the candidates of their choice until we run out of time. As a point of moderator privilege, I may also ask questions of the candidates. I will determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. Kathy Cobbs, you get the first question in this round.
Thank you. My question is for Ms. Cochran Johnson. In terms of experience on the DeKalb County Commission, you are a relative newcomer compared to your opponents. While some may see that as a reason to elect a candidate who has decades of experience, how do you position yourself as the best choice for the CEO job?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. Although I am the junior member of those who are seeking the position of CEO, I would venture to say that my work demonstrates a far higher capacity than others. Time is not required to produce. Since being elected as a county commissioner, I have required in my committee, through mandatory audit, the review of contracts over $3 million that has resulted in over $92 million in savings to DeKalb County taxpayers. I've also successfully allocated more than $1.4 billion in funding towards infrastructure. Beyond that, I have created 91 new homeowners as a result of bringing Operation Hope to DeKalb County, and we have awarded more than $22 million in down payment assistance and first-time home loans. Beyond that, I have written groundbreaking legislation, including our video surveillance system legislation, that addresses and requires mandatory video surveillance at our gas and service stations. I'm also the commissioner who wrote the box store ordinance. So I have a track record of producing, and that's what DeKalb County needs.
Dan Whisenhunt, it is your turn to ask a question.
Thank you. Commissioner Bradshaw, 911 response times have been in the news a lot recently, particularly in DeKalb County. Atlanta Journal-Constitution recently wrote a lengthy story about that. If you are elected CEO, what will you do to improve 911 and emergency response times in DeKalb County?
Well, there are several things that we've done already. First thing is we've got to continue to enforce the non-compliance fines that AMR is required to execute. Then we have appropriated $3 million to purchase 7 new ambulances and improve countywide response times. And we're appropriating $2.2 million in the special purpose local option sales tax to produce more revenue to address that issue. The bottom line is it requires leadership and focus. And I've got good interface with the mayors in the cities that have been affected, and we'll work collaboratively to make sure that 911 process is addressed.
Earlier, we heard that Commissioners Bradshaw and Johnson helping the seniors in DeKalb County was very near and dear to both of them. Commissioner Cochran Johnson, how will you help the seniors of DeKalb County, especially when it comes to affordable housing?
Yes, affordable housing is something that is, shall I say, problematic at this point, but it's an issue that we as elected officials must address. One of the issues that our seniors face is rising property taxes. And for many watching, you may know that 51% of properties sold south of Memorial Drive are not sold to individuals, but LLCs, Wall Street, and private investors. Consequently, this has an effect on our seniors. So, as your CEO, you can trust me to fight under the Gold Dome to repeal the legislation that currently prohibits both rental rate caps as well as rental registries, because I want to know where those properties are located in our community so that I can ensure that there is no adverse effects on taxation for our seniors. Also, I will expand senior housing as your CEO. You can depend on me to issue public-private partnerships, because in order to combat the issues that we're seeing, we will need to be strategic in bringing developers to the table so that we are able to create much needed and valuable senior housing that does not compromise the position of our seniors when they choose to move outside their communities or due to sensitive incomes.
Thank you. Kathy, you have the next question.
My question is for Mr. Johnson. As you think about the strengths and weaknesses of your predecessor during his tenure as CEO, what initiatives of his would you continue, and how would you address the perceived weaknesses?
I think our CEO, Michael Thurman, is a transformational leader, a leader who cares and understands people. One of the things I admire is how he brought the water and sewer under the consent decree to the 6th floor, and the 6th floor of his office. He gave it a priority. It made it a cabinet level opportunity. I would do the same thing in terms of having an office of violence prevention, where I work with we're at a home of CDC, and I work with our partners at CDC as well as our local HOAs, our service providers, and really help to uplift and connect the dots to make those things happen. And that will be one of the things I think I learned from him that would be a strength of mine on how you prioritize and make sure that you keep the people first and you connect the unconnected and serve the underserved. And I will make that as a strong priority, as well as to make sure I stay connected to the community by having those outreaches, the walking town hall meetings, and I won't sit behind the desk, but just continue to connect and bring our department heads out to the streets to make sure the service delivery is on par.
Dan, you have the next question.
Commissioner Lorraine Cochran Johnson, if you were elected CEO, what will be your approach to recycling and sanitation services in DeKalb County?
Let me say that it will be, you will have a commitment from me as your CEO to ensure that the service is rendered. You may be fully aware that during the course of the past 30 days, it was determined that for well over a year in DeKalb County, we have commingled both our sanitation and our recycling due to a shortage in our sanitation department of workers. As your CEO, you can depend on me to hire the necessary workers to deliver the service and not to act in a covert manner. It is absolutely imperative that we as elected officials operate our departments with integrity. And despite receiving numerous calls and emails from residents, we were told that we did not see what we saw. However, after I called for an audit, it was determined that we have commingled those items. I do want to also, as CEO, look for expanded ways to utilize our recycling materials. There are several organizations, and I'm very excited to know that we are also bringing online a charm center, Center for Hard to Recycle Materials that can utilize them.
Commissioner Bradshaw, what is broken in DeKalb County and how will you fix it?
So one of the things that's broken is our service delivery. Our service delivery is not good. And the reason I know that is because I have a person in my office who handles constituent service issues. That's her primary job. And I'll bet you 80 to 90% of the calls that come into my office are from constituents who tried to get a problem resolved with one of the departments and failed to get the satisfaction that they needed. And then they're turning to their commissioner for help to get that resolved, which I'm happy to do, but it shouldn't take that. So I'm going to embark upon a massive program of retraining our folks in the ways and means of customer service so that the people who are paying for this government, when they interface with this government, it is professional, it is helpful, it is timely, and people feel like their problems have been addressed at the department level rather than at the county commission level.
Kathy, you have the next question.
This question is for Mr. Bradshaw. As you look at other counties surrounding DeKalb, their successes and challenges, are there any initiatives that you would like to duplicate to make DeKalb County a more vibrant and desirable place to live, work, and play?
Yes, so my friend over in Gwinnett County, Chairwoman Nicole Love Hendrickson, who is an endorser of me as a side note, has a regular meeting, very informal meeting on a monthly basis with all the folks in her business development or economic facing entities. In DeKalb, we would be talking about things like Decide DeKalb, the Chamber, the CID heads, just bringing the folks around on a regular basis to talk about, strategize about, and work toward comprehensive economic development throughout DeKalb County. I think that's a great model. I am fully capable and aware and happy to take good ideas when they come from other places. That is an idea that I'm going to fully embrace and will execute here in DeKalb County.
Thanks to all of you. That is all the time we have for questions. The candidates will now have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Steve Bradshaw, you get the first closing statement.
Good evening, and thank you again for this opportunity. My name is Steve Bradshaw, and I'm running to be the next CEO of DeKalb County. I'm a soldier, a corporate sales executive, an adjunct college professor, county commissioner, husband, friend, and all-around good guy. I do not seek this office for myself. I am seeking this office because I love DeKalb County, and I want to see us prosper going forward. I'm also seeking this office in response to all of the folks in North DeKalb, Central DeKalb, and South DeKalb who have asked me to seek this office. They love DeKalb County as I do. They have observed the way I've conducted myself in office for the last 7.5 years and have made the decision that my brand of leadership is what we need at the next level in DeKalb County. So I stand ready, willing, and able to wake up every day working to make DeKalb safer, cleaner, business friendlier, and more inclusive. My ask today is that you vote for me and that you believe in Steve because I believe in you. And I thank you so much.
Larry Johnson, please give your closing statement.
DeKalb County, you're in the midst of early voting. We make the path by walking it together. That path is to make sure that we have great housing, that we just don't put our folks in the county jail for mental health and substance abuse. That's not the place for them. That we work to have the best trained, best paid, best equipped police department, that we lock up violent criminals. But we also take care of our young people, create life skills, create the type of programs that they need to have civic engagements to make a difference in our community. I have the experience. We made a difference. We had a performing arts center, $15 million, an intergenerational center. We put sidewalks in areas, a tie-breaking vote to bring those things to South DeKalb and Central DeKalb. You elected me to have results. Your CEO, Larry Johnson, will be about on the streets to connect the unconnected and serve the underserved. LJ4CEO.com. I need your vote, your support, your prayers. You've done it 6 times. I've been elected 6 times as your presiding officer. I'm going to bring intergenerational leadership to making sure DeKalb is prosperous and building better, stronger, and safer. And we'll do it together, united. Thank you.
Lorraine Cochran Johnson, it is your turn for a closing statement.
Yes, I stand before you as the junior-most individual seeking the seat of DeKalb County CEO. I came to you in 2018, underfunded, unlikely, and underestimated. Since that time, I have been about the business of the people of DeKalb County, Georgia. I have created legendary legislation that has garnered us national attention in both the New York Times as well as CBS Sunday Morning, when I stopped the proliferation of dollar stores in our communities with my box store ordinance. When and where I've seen corruption, I've addressed it. When I wrote our vendors' Bill of Ethics, I put people on notice who do business with DeKalb that if you do business in DeKalb, you will do good business. Since that time, I have created new homeowners. I have addressed the issues, and I have been the individual who stands before you with solutions. As a result, I'm your 2022 elected official of the year and your Georgia Ag Champion of the Year for 2023. Vote Lorraine for change.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you, panelists. That concludes our program. We'd like to remind voters that early voting begins April 29th, and Election Day is Tuesday, May 21st. Our thanks to the candidates again and to our panel of journalists. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's program. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club debates, visit atlantapressclub.org. I'm Lisa Rayam. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Louder Milk Young Debate Series.